Can Devin Booker be the best player in the NBA? It's been pretty clear that Devin Booker is one of the best players in the NBA due to his incredible scoring ability as well as his just well-rounded game in general, but the big question is, could Devin Booker ever be the best player in the NBA one day? But quickly before we get the video started, for those of you who may not know, I'm Juicy Sports. I make opinionated NBA content, and if you guys enjoy videos similar to this, hit that subscribe button, that like button, and that post notification bell. But anyways, let's get into it.
Oh yeah, I work with the medics. I'm about to get you injected. I got a couple connections so I can get you prosthetic.
Devin Booker was drafted with the number 13 overall selection in the 2015 NBA draft by the Phoenix Suns. And originally when he got drafted, Booker was seen as a really nice scorer at the next level, but he wasn't necessarily seen as the type of player that he is now. And it was pretty apparent very early on into his rookie season that D-Book was a clear steal in that year's draft. The way that he was able to score so efficiently and effectively at such a young age was seen as special. And the great thing about Devin Booker is he clearly has a great work ethic, as you can see over the years just looking at his numbers. Each and every season that Devin Booker was in the NBA, he continuously improved his game, which is exactly what you want to see from your young player. And of course, after all the hard work that Booker put into his game, he eventually got to the point where he's at today, which is a clear superstar and one of the best players in the NBA. But just to show how good Devin Booker actually is, let's quickly go through his game point by point. So starting with Booker's three-point shooting ability, this was always an ability that he had, and coming into the NBA draft, he was always seen as a phenomenal shooter. But at this point, Booker has a really nice catch and shoot three-point jump shot, of course. He has a really nice crossover into a three-point jump shot as well. He has a nice sidestep and step back, and overall from that three-point range, Booker is just elite, and he can do everything that you would ever want from that range. But now talking about his mid-range jump shot, Booker has a really nice pull-up mid-range jump shot that he utilizes very effectively. He also, of course, has all the abilities he has from that three-point range in terms of the catch and shoot, sidestep, step back, and crossover into a mid-range jump shot. But one area of Booker's mid-range game that's very effective is that post turnaround fadeaway. And I mentioned this in a lot of my videos, but that post turnaround fadeaway is very important in order to take your game to the next level, especially your scoring ability, just due to the fact that it's almost an impossible shot to block. And of course, it's also very difficult to defend that shot when utilized properly. And of course, Booker is utilizing it very well with his fantastic footwork as well as great wingspan and just size in general. And honestly, Booker's mid-range game has gotten so good that he utilizes it and is probably a little more effective in my opinion than his three-point jump shot is, which is kind of crazy to say because coming into the NBA, Booker was seen as a phenomenal three-point shooter. But now talking about Booker's driving and finishing ability, this is also an aspect of his game that's phenomenal and very polished overall. He has a really nice floater within his game that he utilizes very effectively once running the pick and roll / pick and pop, or really just getting in the lane in general. Booker also has a pretty nice ability to get some posterizing dunks from time to time, although he doesn't necessarily utilize it all that often because he's not super athletic. He certainly has the ability to do so from time to time, but mostly what Booker does once driving all the way to the basket is finishing around players with crafty layups, either his left or right hand. And overall, Booker's scoring ability is very elite and very versatile due to the fact that he can score in literally every way possible. And the great thing about Booker at this point is not only is he a phenomenal scorer, but he really turned into a really good passer and playmaker as well, and you could really see that by the numbers over the years. But whenever Booker's hot and is getting doubled or triple teamed, or maybe just getting double or triple teamed in general, he does a phenomenal job at making his teammates' lives easier by finding them cutting all the way to the basket for an easy dunk or layup, or maybe passing to them in the corner for a wide open three-point jump shot. And he also does a phenomenal job at just running the offense in general when Chris Paul is not on the court, and even sometimes when he is on the court. Booker does a great job at running the pick and roll and pick and pop and just finding players like that. He does a great job at driving and kicking out to a wide open shooter, and overall Booker turned himself into a very serviceable player to run your offense. Booker turned himself into a really good defender as well, and overall at this point he's just a great player. I think it's pretty clear. But the real question is, could Devin Booker ever be the best player in the NBA one day? Now, whenever you're talking about the best player in the NBA, there's a few different things that you really look at. The first thing is that player just needs to be a very well-rounded player, basically being able to do everything out there in the court. And when you look at Booker, I think it's pretty clear that he does check that box off. Now, the next thing that you look for is they have to be elite in a certain aspect of his game, most likely the scoring ability and maybe even something else as well. And And of course, as I mentioned, Booker is an elite scorer at this point. I think everybody already knows that watches him. And he's also a pretty good passer and playmaker that's continuously improving in my opinion. The next thing they would need to do is actually perform in the playoffs. Now, Booker didn't necessarily have a huge sample size in the playoffs. He really only made it last year. But in the playoffs, Booker played very, very well in every round that he's played in. And even in the NBA Finals, the biggest stage, he played very well. And overall, I think it's pretty clear that the pressure doesn't necessarily get to Devin Booker. And he certainly checks that box off as well. And the last thing that I personally look at is how does that player affect their team's winning? How important are they to their team? And I think it's pretty clear that Devin Booker is really important to their team. And if Booker wasn't on their team last year, obviously they wouldn't have made the NBA Finals and they wouldn't have gotten anywhere near that, honestly. So I think it's pretty clear that Devin Booker is extremely valuable to his team, but at the same time, the Phoenix Suns are a great team as well. So based upon those qualifications that I listed out, Booker checks off most, if not all of them. So why is he not the best player in the NBA? The reason being is there's just some players in the NBA that do it a little bit better than Booker does, at least at this point. And it doesn't necessarily mean Booker is far from being the best player in the NBA, because I think he's relatively close, but at the same time, I would certainly put some guys ahead of him. But for me personally, to say Booker is the best player in the NBA, of course, you would need to have more sustained success, which he has been showing throughout his whole NBA career. He would also need to play extremely well in the playoffs and really lead his team to wins like he has been doing that one season he made it. But of course, I would like to see a bigger sample size of that. One thing that would be great to see would be if his team is just not playing well whatsoever and he really leads his team to a huge playoff win basically on his own. But probably the main thing that I would need to see is Booker and the Phoenix Suns to actually win an NBA championship, which I certainly think they could easily do this season in my opinion. But if he does that, alongside with some of the other things that I mentioned before, just long-term success, I think Booker could easily eventually be the best player in the NBA. I just think, in my opinion, other guys at this point like Giannis Antetokounmpo, Kevin Durant, and a few other guys are just a little bit better than Booker is at this point, just due to their long-term success. And of course, as I mentioned, Devin Booker has been playing very well ever since he got drafted into the NBA, but the biggest difference is for the most part in Booker's career, he wasn't necessarily on a winning team, and maybe it wasn't necessarily his fault because he didn't have great players around him, but that's kind of besides the point. These other guys that I mentioned, in Giannis and KD, have been playing very high-level basketball and been playing in the playoffs basically throughout their entire careers, so that's the big difference at this point. If I had to personally give my guess to whether I think Booker will be the best player in the NBA in the future, it would be very hard to say at this point because I personally think the next generation of NBA stars is incredible. But with that being said, if Devin Booker is the best player in the NBA in the future, I certainly would not be surprised because it's pretty clear that this guy is an absolute beast and really pressure doesn't faze him whatsoever. And I think he's going to be one of those players that just leads their team to always be contenders in the NBA. But I'm very excited to see how Devin Booker and the Phoenix Suns play not only this season, but going forward long term as well. But anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you guys think Devin Booker could potentially be the best player in the NBA one day, or do you not think so? But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did enjoy it, check one of these two videos popping up now. And until the next time, peace out, guys.
Dosage. Oh yeah, I work with the medics. I'm about to get you injected. I got a couple connections so I can get you prosthetics. Hope you can't go around.